And welcome to a brand new podcast and also video series. This is football's global hub. My name is Russ Goldman, and in this show, which is debuting in this episode, I'm going to be tackling everything to do with football on a global level and on a local level. And because I'm from Boston, that's why I thought I would come up with an interesting name calling this football's global hub. And I'll be talking a lot about the revolution. That will be a big part of the show, but I'm also going to talk about the game as a whole from a global perspective. All the leagues, the World Cup, and on this episode, the debut episode, I have a fantastic guest with me. His name's Gustavo Lopes. He actually covers the Brazil national team. So he's on to talk about the Brazil national team. But on top of it, he covers the New England Revolution. And there's one player that has left the Revolution that we're going to talk about during this show that actually had an impact on a global scale. So we'll be talking about that at the beginning of the show. All right. But before I go on any further, I want to welcome my guest to the show, Gustavo. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, Gustavo, could you tell everyone where they can actually find you? And again, I've actually known about you for a while. Just tell us a little bit about you and your who you cover, because obviously you don't just cover, say, the New England Revolution. I believe you cover Orlando as well.
So I work for Nossa Radio USA, a Brazilian radio, the only Brazilian radio in the United States. So I do a
Okay.
lot of stuff with the Revolution in Portuguese. We broadcast the Revs games in Portuguese. And starting 2026, we actually closed a partnership with Orlando. So we've been doing Orlando City games as well. I've been previously with the Zone. I did the FIFA Club World Cup, Brazilian Times, a lot of Brazilian media, and a few bits here and there for American media as well. So you can find me on Twitter, but mostly I'm also Radio USA as a host and also as a reporter.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. Very, very, very thankful that you could join me today on my debut episode, Gustavo. So, we're going to talk a lot about Brazil. I really want to dive into that. Obviously, the experience at Gillette Stadium that fascinates me. Heard a lot of good things about the time there. Unfortunately, Brazil did lose to France, and we'll get to that. But before we do that, I want to just dive a little bit into a former New England Revolution player, and his name's Esmir Barakevich. And I've been following his career, even though he's no longer with the New England Revolution. I've been following it at PSV Eindhoven. But what's great about it is that Esmir actually had a choice of who he was going to play for, say the U.S. men's national team or Bosnia and Herzegovina, and he went to play for Bosnia, and they just beat Italy. So I want to get your thoughts on Esmir. Let's talk a little bit about, did you see him being able to do something like this when he was a Revolution player?
I think so. I think from very early on, I used to go to a lot of Revs 2 games. And from his generation, which was him, was Panayotu, was Ismir, was No Buck.
Yep.
He was definitely a standout for sure. And he had that quality. He was able to put that into the first team. I attended his first game as a Revolution, which was a 4-0 loss to Montreal, I believe in 2022, if I'm not mistaken, or 2023. So I remember seeing him from very early on, and he was definitely a standout compared to other players.
Okay. And what's interesting, Gustavo, is that I remember back then I was talking to a friend of mine, because I'm wearing a Fulham shirt here. I'm a Fulham supporter, and we're talking about potential players that could come to say Fulham someday. And I was focusing on Noel Buck, but then others have told me, no, the player you really need to look out for is Esmir. And do you think Esmir could get to the Premier League someday?
I think so. I think he made a great choice by going to the Netherlands, and that's it because it's easier to adapt. It's a league that's used to receiving those young players. And if we can think back in the day, Romario, Ronaldo, and so many other stars went to, I'm not comparing them, I'm just saying PSV and the Netherlands, it's a league, it's a country that's used to receive those young guys. in England, it's a little bit more competitive. It's a little bit more pressure. And for a guy that's coming from MLS, I think going to the Netherlands, going to that area,
Yep.
it's just better for a young kid, right? Um, I'm not a huge fan of the way the Premier League does with their young kids, how they adapt and how they bring those guys in. So going to a place that you know you're going to have time, you know, not going to have that much pressure, and you know you're going to have the time to work on your game. I think that was very good for him. Answering your question, I think in 2 years he's going to be ready to maybe do that jump as Buchanan did to the Italian league or even
That's a
maybe the
great
Premier
point.
League.
Actually, that's a great point. I've already seen speculation linking Esmir to Italy and Germany, which wouldn't be a terrible thing. But if I was to advise him, I would say to stay where he is for maybe another year, get that
Yeah,
experience. And listen, we're already seeing that with Ricardo Pepi. You know, my club Fulham have tried very hard to get him to come to Fulham. I still don't think it's dead, but they've been working on that deal for a while. And I think I understand why players like Pepe, why Esmir, and you mentioned Buchanan go in that route because I think it caters to the younger players.
and to be honest with you, Russ, um, we've been seeing also a lot of. We used to see it not recently, but like a couple years ago, we used to see a lot of American players going to the English Championship,
Yes,
the second division, which I completely against because I think you should be playing at the highest level of the country that you're in. And like I said, Netherlands has a great league. It's not the top five, but it's a great league. For a young kid coming from MLS, coming from Evolution 2, I think that's a good step. That's a great step. And
right.
now he's going to get ready. He's getting that game. He's playing better opponents. He might play some Champions League games or Europa League games in the near future. So that's the best way to prepare someone for a Premier League or either for a World Cup that's going to be playing in a couple months.
See, I tend to agree with you. You know, I used to be one that said, well, it's okay to go to the championship because I can name you two players currently, Aiden Morris and Haji Wright, that are playing the championship. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? But I agree with you. I think there's a better path going to the Netherlands. You know, listen, we've had many American players go through Germany. I mean, it's been a good path, and then they work their way through the leagues. Like you said, you're seeing it now with Tejan Buchanan. I think that's great. I can even talk about there's a player that used to play for Fulham that actually went to La Liga, and I think he flourished more in La Liga, Luca Della Torre. You know, and again, I can see why going that path, and if you want to go to the Premier League someday, I can see why it would make more sense to start at a league like that. That actually makes a lot of sense. What do you?
And I mean, I don't want to interrupt you here, but that's just my personal thought, right?
Yeah,
I think if you have national team's ambition, and just talk a little bit about the U.S. men's national team, you
sure.
should be playing at the first division of the country that you're in. I don't think any national team should be looking at players on the second division. I just think there's a different level of football that's played in the second division. And I know in the England they're pretty good. So if you're a guy like Ismail who wants to play for Bosnia, uh, being in the Netherlands, that's a good step. That's a good place to be. If you're playing for Brazil, you should be aiming for those first higher divisions or the
I
best
agree.
teams. And there's a huge talk in Brazil right now that we have a lot of players from Brentford, we have a lot of players from Brighton, or we have players from playing not from the top teams in Europe. And that's also became a huge debate because from Brazil, we're used to having those guys in Real Madrid, in
Sure.
Barcelona, and Man United. And it's not like that anymore. You can be a good player on a mid-level team,
Yep.
but I just think for national teams, you should set a standard. The standard should be the first division always.
That's very interesting, you know, and I'm glad that you took us there because I'm just thinking about a couple of Brazilians. You know, since you brought us there, I want to talk to you about a Brazilian that's actually with Fulham and one that's actually with Wolves. You have Andre, who's currently playing at Wolves, and then you have Rodrigo Muniz, who plays with Fulham. Now he's not ready for Brazil national team yet, and he's not playing. He's splitting time right now with Raul Jimenez, and then you got Andre, who's playing at a team that is about to get relegated. Do you think in these situations to get in the Brazil national team, do you think that is, you know, if that's their ambition, do you think playing at a team like mine or a team like Wolves is not the right step for them.
So I think and I might be a little hypocrite on this, but if your team is facing relegation, I don't think it should be called up for the national team. Same thing going on with Neymar, right? His
Yeah,
team is
right.
facing relegation since last year, the new season now, because Brazil used the calendar year. But if you're not being able to perform enough to help your team to be at least in the top half of
Yep.
the tournament, I don't think you should be in a team like Brazil. I know every team has different standards, but for Brazil. So I think if Ancelotti calls up Muniz, which is a player that I like and
Yep.
actually play for my team in Brazil, uh, he would get so much criticism from the fans, from the supporters, that would
Yep.
not be ideal for him. It would not be good for him.
Yeah.
Igor Thiago, he scored last night against Croatia. He's playing for Brentford. He has 19 goals in the Premier League. He's disputing the top scorer with Haaland. Uh,
Yeah.
he's a
I was
good
going to ask
striker.
you about him. I was going to ask you
He's
about
a
him.
good striker, right? There's no doubt about it. But still, he has 19 goals in the Premier League, and he got talked a lot last week because he got called up playing for Brentford. So there's a standard that the fans maybe not think it's a little higher, but there's no problem playing for Brentford. There's no problem playing
No.
for the Wolves.
Okay.
João Gomes right now, who plays for the Wolves, is probably one of the best midfielders in the Prem. So it's just that Brazil has such a history of having those big guys, big names, Ballon d'Ors,
Yep.
that if Rodrigo Muniz gets called up right now, he gets talked so much in a negative way that would not be good for him.
Okay. I'm a big fan of Rodrigo Muniz, by the way. He's, and again, he's
Me
coming
too.
back from an injury. Are you really?
Yeah, he played for Flamengo, so I'm fine with it.
Well, I got to tell you, he's well liked at Fulham. I just want to tell you seriously, regardless of what happens with the striker position, everyone loves Rodrigo Muniz. Always has a smile on his face, my friend, and just someone that you root for. Definitely someone that you root for. Scored some incredible goals. There was a goal against Liverpool. I don't know if you saw last season. That was just unbelievable. And unfortunately, he got injured this year. All right, my friend. Enough of talking about Fulham. You didn't come on here to talk about Fulham. You came in here to talk about Brazil. So I want to start by talking about the match at Gillette Stadium. And I just want to set it up this way. It's funny because it got no press here. Honestly, I had someone to remind me to tell me that there was a match at Gillette Stadium with France and Brazil. It's obviously massive crowd. And I don't know if I've told you this, Gustavo, but I grew up in Framingham. Framingham happens to have a huge Brazilian population. So again, I am very familiar with the Brazil national team when Brazil won the World Cup several years ago. Now it's a city, but my town at the time just exploded. So I know how important football is to all the Brazilians that live here and around the world. So give me a feeling for what it was like at Gillette Stadium.
So it was a very nice feeling uh, because it was the first chance for many Brazilians to watch their national team. Luckily, because of my work, I've been to Brazil games before, but I've known so many people, at least 300 people that were there that was their first time watching the
That's
Brazil
great.
national team.
That's
And
great.
if I just make a math out of my head, I would say 60-70% that was there never seen their national team play there before. So that was great for that reason. Um, Seeing those guys, seeing Vinicius Junior, who was the best player in the world 2 seasons ago,
Yeah.
Rafinha, who has great numbers, and all those guys. And it's just a circus, right? Where Brazil plays, there's just a number of celebrities, influencers from Brazil that goes to those games. So it was also a chance for the fans to actually see those people, right? Uh, in regards of the game itself, it's just a good preparation to play against a very good French team. That said, Brazil had at least 6 players that had been cut because of injuries. So the whole defense system was a backup system playing
Okay.
against the starting team from France. Um, we had guys that, like Vinicius Junior, had probably his worst performance with the Brazil shirt. Rafinha had a terrible game. So talking about the game, not a good game overall, but experience was pretty good, and we actually got a taste of a World Cup, and which had a lot of positives, and I also had a lot of negatives, but it was a little bit of a World Cup before the World Cup.
And between us, I think that's what it's all about. It's not about beating France. It's about getting ready for the World Cup. So that's going to lead to talk about the friendly against Croatia. Now, I got to be honest with you. I planned on staying up, but I fell asleep because I had to go to work early in the morning. I didn't get a chance to see it. Did you learn anything else from the match against Croatia?
So I am very resentful, and I had a debate about this on Twitter because of the men's national team of the United States. You have to be very careful who you play before a World Cup, a couple months before a World Cup, because if you lose twice, you lose all your confidence going to the last call up. That's what happened to the United States. You got blown out by Belgium, and you lose to Portugal. One of the goals scored by John Felix. That was embarrassing. So that makes you lose all the confidence in your team, in your head coach, and your hopes to the tournament, right? So Brazil picking France and Croatia, I thought that was a little, I was a little scared at first. And for people that don't know, Croatia just eliminated Brazil in the last World Cup. So there was a lot of hard feelings being felt. But Ancelotti, he went through with his scheme, with his tactics, his 4-2-4. That's because a lot of people had doubt, like, is he actually going to play 4 attackers? And he ended up doing it in both games. Brazil played a better game. Matheus Cunha for United, he played more of a midfielder role, but also as attacking position. Vinicius Junior actually played a good game. And at the end, Brazil was a little superior, but there's one guy called Hendrick. This guy's the real deal. Ancelotti doesn't like him, but this guy is a real deal, and he changed the game for Brazil.
That's funny you said that because my coworker said, you know what, if you get a chance to talk to Gustavo, ask him about this player because he's like, this is the player on the rise.
Yeah, he's the guy. He comes up in Palmeiras in Brazil and pretty much wins a Brazilian league by itself. One of the best performances I've ever seen of a player that young, where he comes back from, if I'm not mistaken, 3-0 to a 4-3. He goes to Madrid. He has a great goals per minute or goals participation per minute, but he only played so many games under Ancelotti and under the Xabi Alonso. Then he gets loaned to Lyon. He has a tremendous start. And for Brazil, he played 2 games for Brazil, if I'm not mistaken. He played against England at Wembley, where he scored the winner, and against Spain at Bernabeu, where he scored the tying goal at 85 minutes. And then he comes on last night and just shambles Croatia's defense and gets a penalty kick, and then he also gets an assist. So he's the real deal.
Okay.
From what I know, from the information that I have, Ancelotti has 24 out of the 26 players defined for the World Cup. So there's 2 open spots, and it's Hendrick, Igor Thiago, and Paquetá fighting for those last 2 spots.
Wow.
And I have no way of seeing, there's no way that he's not going to make it. He has to make it. That's just absurd if Ancelotti doesn't call him up.
Okay. Interesting you mentioned those players because what do you make of Paquetá?
So I like him. I like him very much. I think he's the only Brazilian player at the moment that does that number 10 thinking position besides Neymar. But like I said, Neymar is not in a good moment physically right now.
Right.
But Paquetá hasn't performed well in a couple months, right? So we got to decide who you want to perform with. From what I heard, he's not very up. He's not very good, or he's not very preferred in Ancelotti's mind. So that's a disadvantage for him. He has a month to prove that he is worth it too. So he's playing at Flamengo, which is the best team in Brazil, the best roster.
Yep.
And now with a new head coach, if he can get like a sequence of 5 or 6 games, I don't see why not he wouldn't be called up, because he's the only one in that position right now that can do what he does, which is that being that number 10. And he's facing 2 great guys, Igor Thiago, which is a guy that Ancelotti likes, and Hendrick, which is a guy that the Brazilian fans like. So he's in a very weird spot, right?
Yeah, sounds like it.
Calling an extra midfielder or calling 2 extra strikers. So I like him, but at the moment, I don't see him making the squad.
Interesting. Okay, very good. And we'll be talking more about the squad as we talk about subjects. I'm actually calling this section of the show "Football is a Global Hub's Hot Takes." So this is going to focus obviously on different topics that would go with Brazil. So let's start with a coach. So I want to talk about Ancelotti with you. So do you think Carlo Ancelotti has his team ready to contend to win the World Cup? Not just because, again, that is the goal. Anyone that supports Brazil, all the Brazilians, it's to win it. So obviously a lot has to go into it, but and again, we talked about it before with these two friendlies, getting his team ready for the World Cup. How close are they in your minds?
I think they're still very far away, to be honest with you. Ancelotti had 12 games ahead of Brazil, right? 12 games being the manager of Brazil. The first 4 games he had to win so Brazil could qualify. He did that. He did what he had to do for Brazil to qualify. And then he started testing. And to be honest, I don't see that much evolution or development from this team since he got on. Not very. It's not very good as we expect from him, but he has the name and the credibility of no other Brazilian manager right now to do whatever he has to do. So he got time to work. I think that the other managers in Brazil wouldn't have. He has no pressure. He has credit from the fans, from the team. So far, I would say that his job is a 6 out of 10. I would say
Okay.
because he's been making tests, been calling people, he's been giving people chances. But on the field, on the product, on the field, it's not as good as I would like to be 73 days before a World Cup.
Okay. So a lot of work ahead of Carlo Ancelotti. And actually, that's what I've been reading as well. So you're kind of echoing what I've been hearing about what he has done so far. There's a lot of work to be done to get Brazil ready for the World Cup. All right. So let's talk about something coming out of the first match. How concerned are you with the injury to Rafinha?
Not injured at all, just a hamstring injury. I think he'll be out for like a couple weeks, but he should be ready for the World Cup. One thing to note is that as close as we get to the World Cup, we're going to see more players and players falling down with injuries so they can sit out a couple games. I don't think that was the case to Rafinha, but um, I really think that it's not something that's going to bother us at all on a long term.
Okay. Okay. He's just a player that I admire. And what I had read was maybe 5 to 6 weeks, but you're hearing something much shorter than that, Gustavo?
Yeah, I would say a month to a little bit over, but he should be ready for June.
Okay. All right. All right. Let's talk about a player. What's interesting, I actually work with two Manchester United supporters. Okay. And we talk a lot about this player. So I'm going to ask you this because I've seen some good moments and some bad moments. He's obviously a player of high caliber, even at his age. But I'm going to ask you honestly, do you think Casemiro still has enough left to make an impact in the World Cup?
Um, I like him. I like what he brings to the table. I do think he was one of the players from those two friendlies that probably lost some points in my mind in regards to the World Cup. I think he was very slow against France. I think he had not a terrible game, but he had a bad game against France. He's very slow on the ball. He's very slow getting out of pressure. Uh, and for today's game, when you're playing those guys are going to pressure all the time and so fast, I'm a little scared of having him in that midfield. And against Croatia, the team got better after he left because, like I said, he's slow on the ball. But he's a leader. He's a leader. He's a guy that knows how to defend. The guy that's going to protect your defense. And when you're playing with 4 attackers, you need that extra body on defense. So in that, when he does that work of being a defensive guy, I
Right.
think he does it very well.
Okay. And that's the interesting conundrum. And I've seen this with team I support. When you have a player that can help you defensively, but doesn't offer you enough going forward, it's that give and take. Do you give up a little bit for that defensive cover? And it sounds like you can live with that. Is that where you're going on this, Gustavo?
Yeah, I can live with that. If you really look at it, Brazil doesn't have uh, fullbacks that are going forward as well, besides Wesley from Roma. So the
Yep.
way the Ancelotti is going to play, he's going to put Militao on the right and Alexander on the left. And there's both right backs and left backs that don't go forward, they stay back. So if you play with 4 attacking players, plus Guimarães, you have Vinicius Junior, you have Rafinha, you have Estevão, you have Endrick, or you got Thiago, Martinelli,
Yeah.
whatever you want to have, you need those bodies on defense. And
Okay.
Ancelotti got a little criticized this week because he said, opening quotes, uh, the team that wins the World Cup is the team that concedes less goals, not the team that scores more goals. And that's a little upsetting for a Brazilian because we want the joga bonito kind of thing. But in reality, you got to defend first, and Ancelotti's going to do that. So I don't mind having Casemiro in the midfield.
Okay. I like a team that has balance, and I think he would give you some balance. I just don't know. And again, it's just my opinion of watching him in the Premier League. He doesn't have the legs he once had. So that's my only concern when it comes to him. But I can see that he still gives you that stability. All right. Let's now just talk about players to watch. Obviously, the first one that always comes to mind with me is Vinicius Jr. Huge fan of his, Gustavo. Incredible player. I got to tell you one thing that actually, I'm going to bring this up because it bothers me, okay? The stuff that he deals with that is not about football is just not, it's terrible. And this player is a world-class player, one of the best in the world. And I just wish he didn't have to deal with some of the abuse he gets.
I think Vinicius is doing very well in that fight against racism. He knows where he came from. He knows what he had to deal with. And some people in football are not used to it. Just not used to seeing a guy stand up like that. Because back in the day, in the 90s, in the 20s, or in the 2000s, in the 90s and 80s, players used to just accept. And it's not how it works in today's world, right? So I think he does a very good job. In regards to the national team, he has all the support from the fans who wants to see more from him because so far he has not performed well with Brazil. And hopefully Ancelotti is going to be the guy that's going to unlock that side of him for Brazil. So I don't think he's a guy to watch because everybody knows how good he is, right? But he's definitely the guy from this Brazil national team. I personally have some struggles of seeing him with the number 10 shirt. I don't think he should be our number 10, but he's definitely our guy for this World Cup.
Okay. So I understand what he's established. So I was going to say a surprise impact. Maybe we're coming up next, but what's just other players that maybe everyone isn't as familiar with? Like I'm going to be familiar with them, but just I want to get your thoughts on Martinelli. I go hot and cold with him. Well, what are your thoughts about Martinelli?
I'm not the biggest fan of Martinelli. I had the chance to interview him after France, and I've seen a tweet today that sums up exactly what I think about him, and a lot of people agree.
Okay.
So, just like, for example, you're interviewing someone, right? And you ask them, what's your favorite drink? And the person says, water. What's your favorite food? Rice and beans. How do you like the water? Cold or hot? Warm. So he's a warm player. Like if he was a school grade, he would be like a C. Like he's not bad, but he's not good.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
He has never done anything above and beyond, and he's never done anything that actually is gonna be against him. So he's like on the midterms. He's. I used to say it, he's a no salt player. He needs some salt. He needs some seasoning, and he does what he has to do. But it's just like he has the same charisma as my room door. No charisma at all. And I think he's a guy. I will call him up, of course, but he's not a guy that I'm a big fan of.
Okay, all right. That's interesting. I will tell you a player that I'm very high on. Cunha. What do you make of Mateus Cunha?
It's another guy that I'm not a huge fan of.
Oh, okay.
But he does.
Wow, I'm striking out here.
I don't think he has proven himself enough on a big level.
Okay.
To make me be a fan. One thing I did like about him, though, in those two friendlies, that he is not afraid to shoot the ball.
Absolutely
and
not.
I think that's what we need when, most those big teams, right? Brazil, France, Spain. You're always going to be facing teams that usually don't like to have the ball. So you're going to play against Croatia, you're going to have all the possession in the world. You're going to play against Morocco, or you're going to play against Haiti, you're going to play against Scotland on a group stage. You're going to have the ball, and you're going to play against very low blocks. So you need someone who can shoot the ball. Against France, he played more as a winger, and I don't think that suited him very well. And then when he switched to attacking midfielder against Croatia, he was on. If you see the tactical board, he was
Yep.
on the formation. He was an attacking player, but he was playing as an attacking midfielder, and I think he was a little better creating, giving him some space, and actually seeing the goal from up front and having the chance to shoot it.
Okay. Very interesting about Acuna, but he is someone that's not afraid to shoot. So I've seen that firsthand. João Pedro. Thoughts on João Pedro?
Very good striker. I really like him. I do have an issue that he is going to be Brazil's number 9 for the World Cup, I assume,
Yep.
and he
Yes.
has yet to score a goal for Brazil. So at this moment in time, we are recording this in April.
Yep.
Right now, I wouldn't call him up. I would definitely not call
Interesting.
him up. I would. He for me, he's behind Endrick and behind Igor Thiago.
Okay.
He's played 8 games for Brazil and hasn't scored a goal yet. And I have a huge issue of calling someone up to a World Cup that hasn't scored a goal for the national team.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Okay. So let's move on. And again, I want to talk about surprise players that might be a surprise impact. I think you've named them already. Let's now talk a little bit more because it sounds like you're very fond of these two players. So let's talk about Endrick. Well, give me your thoughts on him in a little bit more detail.
Um, I think he's a guy that for his age, he's very smart with the ball. He has a good vision of the field, and he is very strong. If you see the League One games,
Yep.
where it's probably the most physical league in the world, the players bumping into him and falling, trying to get the ball from him, and he knows how to protect. He knows how to use his body. And I think the strikers, they should have one thing, which is having the hunger to score goals. If you're not hungry to score goals, you should be playing up front, which is sometimes, I think, even Vinicius Junior lacked that a little bit back in the day, where he wasn't
Yep.
that hungry to score goals. He worried way more about his dribbling and trying to get space on the field than actually shooting the ball. When Endrick has a chance, he's going to shoot. When the ball comes into him, he's looking straight at the net. I think his first Champions League goal for Real Madrid, where he has a play on a counter attack, he's on a 1v1 against a defender, and he has Mbappe open on his right side and has Vinicius open on his left side. And then instead of passing to the two best players in the world, he just shoots it from outside the box and ended up scoring. That's the type of guy that I want on my
That's
team. And I
confidence.
think
Yeah.
Endrick brings that to the team.
Oh, excellent. All right. Let's now talk about, and again, you mentioned him too, Igor Thiago. Now, for me, I didn't see this coming. It's coming a little bit out of nowhere for me with Brentford. What do you make of him? Can he make an impact? Can he make the Brazil national team?
So, like I said, I think I do have a little fear of Premier League being a little overrated. I don't like the idea. I'm one of those guys that don't like the idea that our number 9 is coming from Brentford. He's not playing
You
at
said that. That's
the
okay. I
best
can't
level.
stand Brentford. You won points from me.
So, but he showed on those last 2 games that he wants to be there, right?
Yeah.
He showed a lot of hunger. He showed a lot of passion for the national team, which is something that the Brazilian fans ask for the team, that we don't see that hunger for most of the players playing in Europe. And he showed that. So props for him. That said, he has 19 goals in the Premier League. He's probably on a hot streak right now. And you need that guy that's going to be ready now for the World Cup, right? The World Cup is in 2 months. So you need that guy that needs to be ready in 2 months. And right now, he probably has the best momentum of out of the strikers, all the Brazilian strikers right now. So
Okay.
he definitely has to be in that conversation. I'm still very in doubt about him. I'm not the biggest fan of him, but right now he's ahead of João Pedro for me.
Okay. Very good. Interesting stuff. All right. Coming up next to end the show, I'm going to ask Gustavo if he was Carlo Ancelotti, what would be his starting 11 going into the first match of the World Cup? And then at the very end, I think I'm going to ask him a little bit about the New England Revolution.
Do you want my starting 11 or Ancelotti's starting 11?
Actually, I want to get what, if you are him, actually, we can look at it both ways. So give me your starting 11 and then what you think that afterwards, then we'll go to what you think Carlo Ancelotti is going to do. What would you do?
So if I was the head coach right now, my starting 11 would be Alisson on net, which is actually a very hot debate in Brazil because Alisson is probably the best goalkeeper in the world,
Yeah.
or if not the top three, but he is not very well liked by the Brazilian fans.
Really?
And a lot of them say that he shouldn't be in the national team because that's going to be his third World Cup. And I can't remember like one single save from him that was like decisive in a World Cup. And he just doesn't have a lot of history with the national team, right? He never had a shadow to his level that could maybe take his spot up. And when you see the Brazil Belgium game in 2018, a lot of people say that he failed in one of the goals, and he's a very bad penalty stopper. And then we lost to Croatia in 2022, and he didn't save a single penalty. So people were scared if we go to penalty kicks. The Alisson on net, it's almost as an automatic loss for a lot of Brazilian fans. But he is my goalkeeper.
Okay.
On my right back will be Wesley. Magalhães and Marquinhos, they're the starters, and Alexandra from Flamengo, that's my left back.
Okay.
Casemiro, Bruno Guimarães, and either André Santos or Paquetá. I'll definitely play with three midfielders. And Vinicius Jr., Rafinha, and Endrick. That's my starting lineup.
Wow.
Now for Ancelotti,
Yeah, what will Ancelotti do?
We actually know what his lineup's going to be, which is a 4-2-4 with Alisson, Militão, Magalhães, Marquinhos, and Alexandre, Casemiro, Bruno Guimarães, Rafinha, Vinicius, Cunha, and a striker that's most likely João Pedro.
Okay. That's very different from your starting 11.
It is.
So in my mind, yours is a little bit more balanced, but also very attacking. More, as you would say, more like Brazil.
It's more like Brazil, but I just don't like the fact that you only have two midfielders, actual midfielders on the pitch, right? Especially when you're playing against a better team like France or Spain. I would say put Fabinho in there, put two defensive center mids, like protect your defense, protect your guys back in the back, try to not concede, and then if it goes to the penalties, try to find a goal like they did against Croatia. Like it was a tough game to play in 2022. And then you had Neymar at the time that found a goal in the extra time, and that's all it takes. Unfortunately, at the time, Croatia also found a way to score back and take it to PKs. But I'm not a huge fan of leaving your defense so exposed. But if you look at Ancelotti's squad, he's playing with pretty much four center backs in the back line. So I think he's going to be protected enough to play against most of the teams in the tournament.
Okay, excellent. What's the latest with Neymar?
So he's playing for Santos. He has not played well recently. He had some good games last year, but not in general. And the biggest issue is that he can't make like 5-6 games straight. He either has to sit back to prevent an injury or he gets injured. So if you make the math, right, the World Cup now has 8 games. To win, you got to play 8 games. Last time Neymar played 8 games was before the World Cup in 2022.
Yep.
But people say, oh, we only need him for the knockout stages. The knockout stages are 5 games. Last time he's done 5 games in a row, that was also before the World Cup.
Right.
So he hasn't played 5 games in a row in at least 3.5 years. So that's the problem with him.
Okay, excellent. Listen, before I let you go, I want to finish up because you do cover the Revs. So I've been watching the Revs, and I'm actually, you might feel differently than I do. I can look at the record and just look on the face of it and think, it's going to be the same thing. I see something different. I see this similar to the beginning of Arena. I like the new coach here. I think it's going to take a little time for them to get up to speed to what he wants. I think, are making progress, but they're not there yet. And I think it's going to take a while to get to where ultimately they're going to be. But the outlier might be the victory at home, Gustavo, but it also might be the trend for the future. That's the way I'm looking at it. I could see the mistakes that they made against St. Louis, which which killed them, but they made the mistakes. But before that, they played very well. What do you make of what's going on with the Revs right now?
I'm not a huge fan of hiring an intern coach or, sorry, hiring someone has never been a coach. In Brazil, when someone is getting his first job, we call him an intern. And Marko Mitrovic is an intern. When you've been on 30 years of losing or never winning, and you own one of the few teams that has never won the league, and you should have a mentality of winning now,
Yeah.
bringing that guy that has never coached on that level, that worries me. Worries
Okay.
me very much. Nothing against Mitrovic. I think he was pretty good on a U21 side, but this is a different level. That's a different game. And I'm very worried about the coaching situation.
Okay.
And I'm very worried about the roster. The roster is just not good enough. It's a very young roster.
It
And I
is.
don't, from my type of football, right? The football that I like to see it, the football that I'm used to it, the winning soccer or winning football that I'm used to it, those guys are not going to do it. And when you see they just signed another 21-year-old guy that has never played in MLS, they
They
signed
did.
a guy from they signed a guy from Bundesliga, not even Bundesliga. The guy was playing in the fourth or fifth division in England on a Werder Bremen C or B side, something like
Yeah.
that. So that worries me a lot.
Okay.
So I don't see they're going in a different direction of results until at least the summer window when they can bring a designated player.
Okay. What do you make of Turgeman? I'm curious your thoughts on him because I think I know when I see a striker, and he seems to be someone that has a nose for goal and has some talent. That kind of surprised me. I didn't see that type of impact because you have the situation with Leo Campagna. He might just be a player that just is very injury prone. What do you make of those two strikers? I'm curious.
I do like Turgeman. I do like him. I think he's very good in a 1v1. He's the guy that can find goals off the dribble, off the speed. Meanwhile, Campana is more of a number 9 that's going to put the ball into the back of the net when he has a chance. He hasn't done it. He used to do that in Miami, but I guess being in the Revs is a little different when you don't have
Yeah.
Messi around you. But the
Yeah,
thing with
exactly.
Campana, right? He had the chances, and he hasn't made very use of those chances.
Okay.
And to the point that I am right now, I don't feel like why wasting more time on him and more money.
I
I
tend to
think it's the
agree with you.
best. I think the best solution to just find a new home for him. I don't think it's going to be Adam Buksa, which was a late bloomer, but not that late.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly just like it just infuriates me seeing him go to the field every 2 months, get injured, and go back every 2 months, get injured, and miss the chance that he's been missing with the team.
Okay, excellent. I'd like to spend more time. We're limited for time. I got just one more question, Revs related. I want to ask you about a player. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. You obviously know your football. Is Peyton Miller a player that can play at the highest level someday?
That's a good question. I don't know, to be honest with you. He does show that he has a lot of talent. And I got very criticized by it last year when I said when they're about to begin the season and he was the starting left back. First, because of experience, I think you should have at least one experience player in each position. Even though they're not going to be a starter, at least one very good or a very experienced guy in that position. And Will Sens definitely not that guy. And he's very poor defensively. He's very good offensively, but he's very poor defensively. So right now, I think Mitrovic putting him as a winger, like he did against Cincinnati, I think that was a very good idea, and I'll keep doing that to the point that he can maybe be that fullback slash winger to the team. Every time he has to defend, I get a little worried.
It's interesting. That's
But
because you know who he reminds me of, and I watch it each and every week. I know I keep going back to Fulham, but he reminds me a little bit of Anthony Robinson, who was not good defensively. I watch a lot. I know a lot, and obviously U.S. men's national team, and I could get blasted for this, but he's not a good defender. He isn't. He just is very good going forward, and his crossing's gotten better. But he reminds me a little bit of him. But I do hope Peyton Miller works on the defensive part of his game. I'm glad that you shared that in your honesty. I
yeah,
really
yeah, and I
really
mean,
appreciate that.
like when maybe you want to get some, like, you're a young left back and you want to maybe talk to someone, and then you look up and it's Will Sands, you have a problem. When Will Sands is your veteran, you
Yeah,
have like a master problem, and that needs
I
to be
agree with
fixed
that.
ASAP. Like, bring back Ben Sweat. I don't know. You have to. That's like, you have to sign some. That was a joke, but you have
Right.
to sign a left back in the summer window ASAP.
Listen, I'm there with you. Great stuff, Gustavo. Listen, thank you so much for joining me today and the inaugural episode. We talked a little bit about everything. We talked Esmer Barakevich, we talked Brazil, and we ended talking a little bit of the revolution. And I just want to thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it.
I enjoy it. I appreciate the invite. You have me anytime that you need someone to talk about Brazil or the refs. I appreciate the invite.
All right. Well, I'm definitely going to have you back because you were a fantastic first guest. I really enjoyed it. But it is time to wrap up the show. For Gustavo Lopes, I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for listening to Football's Global Hub.